Hey everybody, this is Eric Carter-Landin, and today I'm bringing you a new episode and a new segment of the show called Advocacy. Advocacy is going to be a once-a-month episode that focuses on cases outside of New Mexico. If you are fighting for justice for a family member and you'd like to come on my show, please email trueconsinterviews@gmail.com. That's TRUECONS interviews@gmail.com. This first episode of Advocacy is super important. This is about the murder of Adolfo Vega. I'm Eric Carter-Landin, and this is Advocacy. Hey everybody, welcome to an episode of Advocacy. My name is Eric Carter-Landin, your host, and I'm here joined today by a very special family member who's been fighting for justice for her brother. Her brother's name is Adolfo Vega, and I want to just go ahead and bring Nancy on here. Hi Nancy, welcome to Advocacy. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here, and thank you for being willing to share Adolfo's story on this show. I know it's not easy. So as we get into this, I want to start off with you telling me a little bit about Adolfo, about, who he was, what his interests were, what's your favorite memory of him, anything you want to share about Adolfo.
He was my little pain in my butt brother. He was the baby. He followed me around everywhere. Well, me and the other siblings, there's a total of 3 brothers. So it was Adolfo, our 2 older brothers, and myself. That was from my dad and mom's marriage. He loved life, really. He really just loved life. He loved animals. He loved roosters. He loved horses. Just tried to do everything and anything he could. He just was one of those people that never was able to, have one career. He just loved to dabble into every little thing and stuff like that. And his favorite thing with me and him and our siblings was he would say, I'm the best looking out of everybody. and I would say, well, if you're comparing yourself to a female, then are you trying to tell me something? And then he'd tell me, you know what I mean. So that was just our joke that we always had.
Where did you guys grow up?
We grew up in San Isidro until 1986. Till 1984. So he was 4 years old. He was born in Coronado, California. And then we moved up to Tehachapi, California, which is in the Kern County Valley. It's a little about 3.5, 4 hours, depending on how you drive and which route you take. And Tehachapi is a Native American name, and it means the land of 4 seasons. So we literally have all 4 seasons there, and we're inside a mountain. And we grew up there, and he stayed in that area, and I moved on, and he was just always there. We have family there, and stuff like that. So
when Adolfo was growing up, what kinds of things was he into? What did he like to play with? Was he into sports? What were the things that he liked to do?
Football. He was into football, bodybuilding, because he was really conceited. He thought he was the best looking man ever.
He had to live up to his own reputation, right?
He did. But yeah, it was just, he had lots of friends. He still has lots of friends from childhood, even from when we were living in San Diego. His friendships lasted some, I believe, are older, about 20-something years.
Wow.
So, I mean, he was a caring, good guy, and he just loved to help people, loved football, loved being around, and being the life of the party.
Yeah. He sounds like a fun guy.
He is. In my memories, I know that was the past, but
he'll always be that fun, conceited guy for you. Anything else you want to share about Adolfo before we kind of go into some of the other stuff here?
He was a great dad. He has kids. He was a grandpa. He was a grandpa for the first time. And he truly loved everybody.
I know that you aren't shy to talk about some of the struggles that Adolfo had. I think it's an important part of his story. And whenever you're ready and whenever you feel like you can continue on, if you want to talk a little bit about that, just to give my listeners a bit of a heads up, and my viewers, how I feel about victim blaming and how I feel about people acting like certain people are throwaway people because of some of the things that they're going through in their life. It's not something that I believe. It's not something that I think is a fair perspective. When you're talking about a victim of murder, it doesn't matter if they struggled with drugs or alcohol or if they were in sex work or whatever their life, wherever it had taken them. None of that stuff means that they deserve to die. And so I want everyone to keep that in mind when they're listening to this story. Adolfo was human just like anybody else. He had his struggles. And just because his struggles don't look like yours doesn't mean that what he went through was right or that he deserved it. So, Nancy, if you're ready, tell me a little bit about those struggles.
We had a rough childhood. The Mexican, Hispanic culture, discipline is really hard. And so we grew up with hard discipline and stuff. So it was a lot of that. And I don't blame my parents for that because, again, everything is learned behavior. And so they only learned that behavior from their parents and pass it on, and it's generational until somebody says, this is enough. We've had enough. This isn't the way we're supposed to be. But, and Adolfo is my biggest why in my career choices. So a little bit about that is I am currently finishing up my master's for my counseling degree. And next year, hopefully, God willing, I will be entering my doctoral for my PhD just to continue because of the mental health that comes behind it, right? Because the stigma for, Hispanic families is what happens here stays here. Oh, you're not this or you're not that. You're crazy. This isn't happening, and things like that. So I really want to change that in the community and stuff. And Adolfo struggled a lot with that. I think when they say somebody is the quote unquote, the life of the party is because they're really struggling deep down inside. They're trying to cover up all that pain that happened and stuff like that by being the life of the party, the one that's making everybody laugh, the one that's making everybody else happy, but truly not being happy himself. In 1986, he was only 6 years old. Our older brother from my mom's side of the kids. So my mom has six kids total, apart from, that was from her first marriage and my father. My mom's oldest son, Jesus Torres, was killed in Kern County as well. So that really tore the family a little bit more. And after my brother's death in 1986, my mom took me and my brother Adolfo back to San Diego, where we were there, and we kept going back and forth between my mom and dad. During our earlier childhood, though, I guess there was domestic violence between my mom and dad. I personally don't remember that, and it's probably because the trauma, my brain blocked everything out and stuff like that. I'll get questioned by my brothers or my mom, you don't remember saying this or this happening? I'm like, nope, sorry, none of that. But I know that Adolfo did, and during that time, he started to struggle, because, he's six years old. So between 6 and 12, he really struggled a lot with, the going back and forth between parents and stuff like that. During his teenage years, though, my dad was a vagabond, basically. My dad was never home. He always traveled, and always had women and always spent his money in different things. At the early age, of Adolfo's teenage years, my dad got with a woman and basically left my brother, I would say, stranded emotionally, mentally, because he took on her family, her kids. And so my brother was left behind. So that's where my brother really started to struggle. And that's when he really started to dive into the drugs just to cover up that pain of abandonment. We had long conversations and stuff like that after he got out of prison of the whys and stuff like that. And I try to explain to him what I have learned, because back then I didn't know either. So his struggles, became, and he fought those demons on a daily basis. He could stay clean sometimes, and then sometimes he would just relapse for the smallest things. And I don't know what it is to be a drug addict, so I can't say the smallest things would make him relapse, and stuff like that, because to him it could have been the biggest thing. But to me, me being the outsider looking at it, it's the smallest thing. So he struggled back and forth with that. He did go to prison. And he was in juvenile hall back, most of his life, in and out. He went to prison. He spent there about 8 or 9 years. And then in 2018, he was released. He stayed clean for a while. And then he got into this very toxic relationship, which, again, landed him back into the drugs.
Sure.
And, he tried at that time, he went to UEI, tried to become, I believe, a CNA. But at that time, he was assaulted by a member of the LGBT community. He informed whoever he had to inform at the UEI. And because they wouldn't change him schools or, take him away from that person, he dropped. And then he barreled down that hill again. So then he went to California-City. He was there for a while with my mom, and he was doing good. He was clean. He was doing good and stuff. But then again, he barreled down again with the drugs. And him and my mom and my other brother would, fight and stuff and tell him he needs to be off the drugs. He needs to get his life together, and things like that. And of course, they wouldn't allow him to do drugs in their home.
Sure.
So he went to the streets. He was primarily homeless per his choice around the beginning of the year to the end of this, till he was killed. He would check in with my mom, with our mom and our brother and stuff like that and stuff. They knew where he was, or they would go out looking for him and so forth. And we would lose contact. We would regain contact. He had so many Facebook accounts because he would forget it, his password, his social media, Instagram, TikTok. I mean, it was like, is it really you? Call me, and he would call me, be like, it's me. I'm like, okay, just making sure, And then, he just really struggled and was never able to get the help he needed. I couldn't tell you what he was or wasn't diagnosed with. I have a journal of his that I found in his belongings from after he got released from prison, asking God, pleading with God to help him, help him with the demons, help him with changing his life around and, making himself a better person and stuff,
Yeah.
He was a different person when he was on drugs.
Sure.
So that led him into the lifestyle he was in and stuff, and being the homeless. In April, at the beginning of April, he was actually assaulted by 2 men that physically assaulted him, broke his left arm, cut open his head with, the golf club. Oh. And they tried to shoot him. The police report says it was like a BB gun or something. The guys were arrested, but because my brother was not alive, there's no witness, they released them. Even though my brother identified them by picture, by verbal conversations with the police officers, all that, they let these guys go.
Okay, so this was a few days before his murder. He was attacked by 2 guys. Mm-hmm. And because by the time it came time for him to, for them to start pressing charges, he had already died. They
Correct.
released them. Okay.
Yes. Then on April 5th, my other brother and my mom were notified that he was in the hospital because we didn't even know. So my brother went there, and he was the only one allowed up in the room because he had been, had the COVID shots. Mm-hmm. And so he recorded him, and we have different video snips of him and stuff. And he's laughing and crying, and he says he hasn't been on drugs, and he's trying to change his life and things like that. My brother video called me on the Facebook Messenger so I can talk to him. We had a little conversation and stuff, but I asked him, what happened? He told me a little bit about it. My brother was sending me the videos, and I talked to him, and I was like, Adolfo, you need to change me. I was like, if not, your mom's going to bury another son. And we talked, and, I told him I loved him. He told me he loved me. And that was the last conversation I had with him. My brother and my mother took him home. They got into an argument on the way from the hospital. That was on April 5th. Then on April 6th, he went back to my mom's house. He showered. He made some couple phone calls and stuff like that. My mom dropped him off maybe 3 or 4 blocks away from her house because that's where he wanted to go. He didn't want her taking her anywhere, but he had asked, and, they had talked, and, he said he would be back. He was just going to go pick up some things and be back. So my mom said she waited for him. She waited for him all night until she got that knock on the door. And she says it was the coroner's office that came to the door with, I guess they have, I don't know how it works. It wasn't like a regular sheriff, but it was a coroner's officer that was with the coroner, and they told my mom, they informed him that he was dead, and basically told my mom that they basically victim blamed him for being there and being killed. And I was like, how in the world are you going to blame my brother for somebody killing him? Right? So I get the call from my other brother about a little bit before 11. And he tells me and I was like, what happened? And he saw Adolfo's dead. And I was like, what? And he saw he's dead. And I was like, wait, what? And I just kept repeating that. So then I composed myself a little bit. I called the California City Police Department. And I was like, the first dispatcher, she was really sweet when she spoke with me and stuff. I'm like, I introduced myself. I was like, my name is Nancy Jimenez Vega. I'm the older sister of Adolfo Vega. I just heard that he got shot and killed. I was like, what can you tell me, or who can I talk to? And she said, Detective Hansen is the detective in charge. He's at the scene right now. They're currently removing your brother's body to take to Bakersfield, California, to the coroner's office there, to the building, because that's the main city for the surrounding cities and stuff. And so I called my brother. We kept going back and forth and stuff. My brother was out trying to look for him. So then I got on social media and try to piece, if anybody knew something. And then I finally got I forgot who directed me, but it's called Cal City 2.0. And somebody had said, my brother's name on there, and said that his clients had told him some man named Adolfo was shot because he broke into a house. And I was like, that doesn't sound like Adolfo. I know Adolfo. I know my brother. I know Adolfo, but he wouldn't break into somebody's actual house, if they're in there, you know what I mean? And so then, my mom and my brother called the police department Thursday, the 7th. They couldn't get a hold of the detective Hansen. They left their number and stuff to have them call back. Never call back. So Thursday night, I thought maybe somebody will call my mom because she's the next of kin, kind of try and, give us a little bit of information of what they could. And I understand police cannot give a lot of information just because it's an ongoing investigation, right? But at least something, a little piece of bread to dangle us or something. Nothing. So then I called again Thursday night. The officer that answered the phone, he was like, well, Detective Henson's not available. I can take a message, I was like, no. I go, I need to talk to somebody right now. I go, this is not acceptable. I need to know something. Give me something. So they transferred me to the detective. I had one phone. I had this one I was talking to him on. And then I have another phone that I called my brother, and I was like, are you with mom? Get together. I'm going to put you guys on speakerphone. I have these two phones. I'm talking to him so you guys can listen. And so they're listening and stuff. And, I introduced myself to the detective. And I was like, my name is, again, the speech. I'm Nancy Jimenez Vega. I'm Adolfo's older sister. I'm trying to get some information, of what's going on. I understand that, the justice system can't give me all the information we need currently, what's going on. But prior to that, I had heard different things about that detective, because that detective already knew my brother. He already had those encounters with my brother. So it wasn't going to be an investigation without bias, in my personal opinion. So he gets on the phone. I can tell he has me on speaker. And, I'm telling him, I was like, I know Adolfo's lifestyle. I'm not trying to make him, out to be this 100% angel. I know my brother, but he's still my brother. He's my loved one. I was like, I need to know what happened to him. And he was like, well, who's the next of kin? And I told him that would be my mom, but her English, she can carry a conversation, but if you can't, native Mexican, so her understanding to certain words in English and how to respond to it isn't all there.
Right. She could have a casual conversation with people, but if it comes to like legal proceedings or conversations about the law, it's probably going to be difficult for her.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So yes, thank you for clarifying.
Sure.
He basically told me that he couldn't tell me anything and that he did not appreciate my attitude. My attitude? What attitude? I'm trying to find out what's going on with my brother. I go, I want to know who killed him, what happened. I'm grieving. We're dealing with a traumatic event right now. I'm trying to figure out and put pieces for my mom. I'm trying to figure out something. And he was just like, well, I don't appreciate your attitude and da-da-da-da. And I go, okay, whatever. I was like, let me ask you this. Are you in any way, shape, or form related and or associated with the men that physically assaulted my brother, to the tenants of the home or the home that my brother was killed at, and or to the person that killed my brother? And he was like, what? And I go, are you not understanding my English? Or are you not understanding the question? So I can tell that he took me off speakerphone at that time. And he goes, I don't understand your question. So I repeated it all over again. And he chuckled. He's like, no. And I go, okay. I go, well, I'm just coming, forward to you because some of the things that I'm hearing from the streets, and I'm trying to clarify. And he was like, well, you shouldn't believe the streets. You shouldn't believe this because you should only believe the police officers. And I was like, no, sorry. I go, I'm going to come to my own conclusions when I have information because one, I understand the streets sometimes fib, but I also understand the police officers are sometimes corrupt. Not all, but there are corrupt officers.
I just think the audacity of him, who would not return your phone calls or even speak to you, to accuse you of or to even suggest that you should be listening to the police who aren't talking to you instead of the information that you're getting from the street. That's just absurd to me, especially because I think people who don't have family members who are involved in drugs don't understand that sometimes the only people you can go to are the people that are hanging out with your family members. And they may not give you all the truth, but they can definitely give you some information that you didn't have before.
He told me that he would give my information to his sergeant so his sergeant could enlighten me on my questions. And I was like, enlighten me? I go, what's there to enlighten? I go, I have questions. I understand you can't give me answers for some of them, but can you give me something? So his sergeant called me. Less than 15 minutes. I couldn't tell you the exact time frame, but I know it wasn't very long. He talked to me. His sergeant had bedside manners. opposed to the detective. But again, he couldn't really tell me much information. I shared the same information with him. He goes, well, if you want to send that information over to me, those videos and stuff. I was like, no, I'll keep those videos to myself, and I'll, ask my attorney. And I don't have an attorney, but, I use that terminology and stuff. Again, I couldn't get no answers, nothing. I got off the phone, and this is another tearjerker for me, was my mom telling me she was proud of me. And I was like, proud for what? She goes, for speaking correctly in English and asking the questions for your brother to try and get some answers. And I was like, Mom, you don't have to thank me. And she goes, I wish I could have had this when your brother was killed in 1986. She goes, I didn't have anything. I didn't have anybody. And I was like, I'm sorry. I was only 12 years old then. I didn't know, anything about the justice system or anything like that. And so that's why I try hard to keep his information alive, to keep fighting, to keep going and stuff, because he was killed April 6th. It's June 25th. We still have nothing. And the guy admitted to killing my brother. That's the most ironic thing, is this son of a guy admitted to killing my brother. Then he was released on April 8th. And now he's selling his house. Are you selling for my family, it's like, are you selling your house because you want to skip town? Have you skipped town? Have you left the country? It's like, what is going on? Because no warrants have been reissued again to go arrest him. We haven't had any conversation. This guy admitted. It's on the news. It's on the warrants that the news people got from the courts, that he said he saw my brother next door at the abandoned house, assumed that he was going to break in because so my brother was killed April 6th, about 7-ish p.m. I got out there Monday, so that would have been the 11th, something like that. I went out to that home and I videotaped and I recorded and I posted it so nobody can say you're lying, right? So I did the TikTok. This is the house where my brother was killed and the guy supposedly said my brother was breaking into. There's nothing that would have shown evidence of him breaking into because the spider webs, the dirt, all that was still intact, all throughout the windows. Okay, so where do you assume and get off to do this? And then once we got my brother's body, a little bit more pieces started to come up, and now more questions, even more. At the funeral home, they gave us his belongings. It was a broken phone, a watch, a receipt from Rite Aid, and then the packaging that comes with the medication when you pick up. The receipt shows that my brother left or checked out of Rite Aid at 6:45 p.m. The phone call came in at 7:11 p.m. to 911. If my brother truly walked, and I did the Google Maps, from Rite Aid to where the house, it's approximately about 18-minute walk. So he left Rite Aid at 6:45 p.m. The 911 call came in at 7:11 p.m. So it's like, when did you kill him? What happened in this?
What is that, like 7 minutes, 7 minutes in between that? Yeah.
Yeah. How did my brother walk from 6:45 p.m. to there? So it would have been 7:03 or so that he got to that home. And then 7 minutes later, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 7 minutes later, the 911 call comes in. And remember, my brother, he reported that my brother was walking away because where my brother was killed, it was like a little bit more half down the driveway. And I think it was really his ego being hurt, quote unquote, because he says that my brother turned around as he was walking away and told him, you're not going to do nothing with that. And I'm assuming he meant his gun. And the guy fired one shot, which entered my brother's right arm, chest cavity, exited his left arm, which No weapons were found on my brother's body. So to be a threat is a whole lot of BS, because one, he admitted he was walking away. How he got shot means that he wasn't standing face to face with you. 3, he had a broken arm that wasn't even in a cast because of an open abrasion from the physical assault that he got into days prior. So it's like, okay, so what really happened here? So it just raises a lot of questions. Did he know my brother? Did they know my brother? Did my brother, because the opiates that my brother received from Rite Aid weren't on his person. Those were never recovered. So there's a lot of, I mean, we can speculate a whole lot between 6:45 p.m. and 7:11 p.m. of what really happened. But I don't think we'll ever really truly know the true story behind it, because it's only the killer's side and the police side. That detective never called my mom. I spoke to him because I was being forceful. My brother-in-law that's married to my mom's daughter, so my half-sister, is Caucasian. I was up there that week. I celebrated, but didn't celebrate my birthday because my birthday is April 16th. So I didn't care to celebrate it. But my grandkids wanted to take me out to dinner because I wasn't going to be there for the weekend of my birthday. We met up with my sister because she also lives up there. And she told us, she goes, Steve called and left that detective a message and explained to him who he was, how he was related to this, murder, and told him, I'm Caucasian, so if you can please give me a call back, I would appreciate it. And guess what the detective did?
Called him back.
Until this day, I still have not heard from that detective nor my mom. And everybody knows, yes, she's the next of kin, but right now I'm the voice. I'm the one that's, articulating the investigation, looking for things, asking for things and stuff like that. And not to this day has he ever called. I made a formal complaint, which went nowhere. I sent the city mayor an email, which she passed it on to the city manager. So if you look into California, you'll see a lot of things that aren't right per the city, per the police department, per all the other stuff. We went up there in May after the services and stuff like that for my youngest grandson's birthday. I think it was May 16th on our drive back. It was a Sunday. Another sergeant calls me back and was asking me about the complaint and, what happened and stuff. And he was asking me questions because he goes, I want to ensure that if my deputy violated anything that, it's brought to his attention, and or if not, then nothing's going to happen, basically. So I explained to him, he goes, oh, okay, so it sounds like he didn't do anything wrong. I was like, okay, so if you don't think him calling my Caucasian brother, once my Caucasian brother-in-law told him who he was, called him back, that's nothing? I go, I've never tried to turn this into a race thing because the man that killed my brother is African-American. My brother, were Hispanic and Native American, and my brother-in-law is Caucasian. So I've never tried to turn anything into a race until I heard that from the sergeant. And I was like, okay, so you're telling me that the detective that's in charge of this, that's had previous encounters with my brother, is biased against this, right? Of course, I didn't get no answer or anything. The sergeant at the end of the conversation was like, I hope I answered all your questions. I go, well, you technically didn't answer any questions. I go, you only told me what you wanted to tell me. And then to top it off, this is like the cherry on top of the ice cream. He goes, the guy that killed your brother was a pillar of the community. My significant other was next to me. He looked at me. He's like shaking his head. And I held and bit my tongue to not retaliate verbally to that comment. It took everything in my soul. And as I'm driving, I'm driving. So I have him on my car speakerphone. I am holding that steering wheel. My hands turned white from how tight I held him from him telling me that. And it's like, how dare you? You know, how dare you tell me that he was a pillar of the community? If he was a pillar of the community, he would have just called the police and left my brother alone. My brother would have still been alive and maybe gotten some charges for being on an abandoned property. There's no trespassing signs. There's nothing on that abandoned property. It's just an empty house that he didn't even own. So if he was such a pillar of the community, why didn't he just call the police?
Yeah, why did he have to shoot him?
Yeah. Why see him if he's inside the house or wherever he was? Why did he feel the necessity to go and grab his handgun to shoot my brother? That's not a pillar of the community.
No.
That's
a murderer.
Murder.
That's a murderer.
To me, that's premeditated murder. Because, I see you. I'm going to go grab my gun. And with all this gun violence going on and stuff like that, I like guns. I think people should have their guns to protect themselves. For protection against somebody trying to hurt you. My brother was nowhere near his property, was not on his property, was not doing anything to his property. So he straight out came out and killed my brother in cold blood. In cold blood. That's, and I've gotten those hate messages on my TikTok. Well, your brother deserved it because he was somewhere he shouldn't have been. It's like, no, I am sorry. Don't victim blame my brother. Don't blame my brother because, one, that guy had a choice. He has a choice to pull that trigger or not. My brother was not on his property. My brother was not causing him harm, his family harm, his property harm, nothing.
And he wasn't armed.
No.
He was unarmed.
He was wearing those basketball shorts. So if he was armed, those basketball shorts don't hold nothing, no weight.
No, they would have been falling down.
Right?
Yeah.
And then he had a sling. It wasn't even a cast. It was a sling. He had a broken arm. So what is he going to do? Fight with one hand?
Do you know if your brother had any kind of traumatic brain injury from being hit in the head with the golf club?
We don't know.
Okay.
Because TBI can show up later. During the time that my brother was talking to him and the videos we have, there was no physical, as far as his face, no physical bruising, nothing. At the viewing, we notice he has bruising. His cheek, right here on his jaw, his lip, on top of his forehead. And nobody can, regardless if you're dead or not, you can tell bruising. And we noticed those bruises, so we don't know what truly happened. And that's adding more to the unknowns. And it's like, we had to make sure that he had a hat on because the coroner literally cut all the way around his head and stitched it up. So it was it wasn't nice, but everybody has their different techniques, I guess, because other coroners that I have heard of, similar situations happening is that they normally cut from the back forward, so it's not visible. But no, they botched my whole brother's head. And then to hear, we weren't able to see his body prior to the viewing. And my God, that cry my mom let out. It's about one of the most awful sounds ever. And now, what she does on a daily basis is she sits in front of my brother's picture. She put it in front of her chair, and she sits there on a daily basis. It's not good for her. I try to call her, try to keep, but what can I do? She's not, it's her second son being murdered. And on top of that, her oldest son was murdered. Now her baby was murdered. So her motherhood, her first start of motherhood and her last end of motherhood were taken from her. And That leaves her with myself, my sister, my other two brothers, and my sister's not doing well either.
It's not fair, and it's not right. And your mom deserves better. You deserve better. Your family deserves better, no matter what the circumstances were. It's absurd. And I hope that through sharing his story and through raising awareness that you're able to see some traction.
I'm becoming a mental health practitioner, right? To help people with mental health, to help families deal with this. He's my why. But I also feel like there's so many injustices of murder that are going unannounced. People don't know what to do. Like I did at first. I don't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. That hopefully me doing this, it's not for personal gain. It's to help others to find a way to have answers for their murdered children, murdered family members. Yeah. It's just justice for everybody, not just for my brother.
That's why I do this. You've got to do something with that energy. Otherwise, it'll eat you alive. And so...
It does. It's like I try to be strong for so long. And I normally don't cry. Like this is the most I cry when I cry. I don't let myself fully grieve just because I want that feeling to keep me going.
I think that there are a lot of ways to keep that energy going. And I think that helping others, I think you're right on the right track for that. But I will say, just as somebody who's kind of gone through this and is going through it still, take care of yourself. Because if you don't, and you are flat out because of depression or whatever, you're no good to anybody like that.
Yeah, no. I joined the gym so I can get my frustrations out.
Yeah. Go to a smash room or something and break some stuff. Okay, so finally let's go into how my listeners can help. So if they want to learn more about Adolfo's case, if they want to get involved, how can they do that? Is there a petition? Is there a fundraiser for a billboard? What can we do to help you?
I do have a petition. It's on change.org.
So I'll put that in the show notes below in the video and in the podcast as well. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, New Mexico.